So, Greg, this is going to be our first episode, and we have this amazing guest and this film,
amazing film. Yeah.
which in this case sort of is a fastball right down the center in terms of art house sort of joyous.
Yeah, if you want to talk about art house, people's expectation of an art house, the Merchant Ivory is a really good place to start.
I'd say. Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you remember in terms of kind of what that response was here to these movies? I mean, I know your dad and your grandfather may have been running the business at the time, but what was as a younger person, what was the vibe, I guess?
As a younger person, I mean, I remember seeing Room with a View. Yes, Room with a View was the first Merchant Ivory film that I saw, and it was just, it was really eye-opening. A costume drama, but one that, felt something that a younger audience could really appreciate, especially because it was about young people and falling in love and passions.
Right. There's nothing stuffy. It was so the subtext and the thunder of the subtext was there at all times, and you just
and how could you not fall in love with the Laemmle?
Yeah, oh my God, I had such a crush on her and on Emma Thompson, and oh my gosh, these are. Well,
the other thing I really remember about Room with a View was that I was looking at the guy playing the fiance, and understanding that this is also the actor that's in My Beautiful Laundrette, and yet it's just impossible that this is the same actor. Of course, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Wow, that's right. Oh my goodness, that's right. The actors that he got to work with him are astounding. Absolutely astounding.
It is amazing. Yeah.
I love this. I mean, what's so interesting, and we talk about this in the interview. What's so interesting to me is just, again, this kind of we kind of put it together. They were sort of little indie movies. We sort of were running and gunning as we went. You watch these movies and the sweep and the sort of the tsunami of emotion that you have as you're watching it. You have no experience of the fact that, from behind the scenes, that it was kind of really patchwork, a little money here, a little money there, actors taking half their salaries, that it was sort of a little indie movie, essentially.
They were completely indie movies, and not only independently produced, but then they had to go find distributors in many cases. And, how successful was the distribution? Did they get their money from the distributor, in many cases? Because that's not always, something that happens.
Right. Yeah.
So then you're back to square one. No matter how successful your last film was, you've got to, you have to start over again.
Yeah.
And yes, I think there was a point where the films were maybe becoming successful enough that maybe they got a little easier.
But
then all it takes is one film that doesn't work at the box office, and
right. Right, and then it becomes a sheer ice face that you can't sort of get up.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Yeah, if you love Merchant Ivory movies, if you're curious about the making of them, certainly amazing interviews with Emma Thompson, with Helen Bonham Carter, with the production team and the staff who made these films. This is sort of a wonderful view in. But also, if you're a filmmaker and you're interested in sort of knowing more about what the process is or how these sort of astounding titans of filmmaking did it or cobbled it together. It's just a wonderful sort of very self-effacing portrait of what these how they made it work.
Well, yeah, and there is a lot of tension, I think, in a creative relationship. I'm thinking like almost the last film I saw before the theaters shut down was the film Band of Brothers, and it was about a documentary about the band. And at that point, Robbie Robertson was not the only surviving member, but he was the only person who was talking in the film about this group of people that came together to make some of the most amazing music of all time. And there was always a question in the back of my mind as I was watching that film, was he being honest about the relationships, about his role in creating, turmoil. I'm not the only one creating turmoil, but just, and then, the band breaking up and a lot of bad blood in some cases and things like that. I loved the film because I loved the band, but, it didn't, there were times when I wasn't sure, was I really getting, am I just getting the last person, the last man standing story?
Right.
But I think, and James is the last man standing here, but I think that's almost given him a certain freedom to really, be honest about what the relationship was between, this team of creators.
Yeah, incestuous at best, right? And 96, I guess.
Call it what you want. I don't,
Yeah,
whatever. It worked for them.
No, there's no comment. There's no sort of value judgment on that. It's just that it was very much as Stephen talks about, an open relationship, and it had so much creative fire in it, and obviously so much got created out of it. And again, this is such an interesting sort of background to understand then the foreground of these movies, and then the personalities that made them. We're excited to start this podcast. Greg, I'm thrilled to be doing this with you. And, as a filmmaker and as an actor and someone who loves going to movie theaters, these theaters matter so much to me. And so it's an opportunity to have you speaking to filmmakers whose films are opening and hitting theaters and to really be able to give them a platform and continue to elevate, people discovering, finding out about them. It's harder and harder for films to kind of get attention, and you've done so. You've committed to that. But by doing this as well, I think it's an opportunity to kind of, help these filmmakers be heard.
Right. Well, we want people to see these movies, to support art house cinema, and to support the people that are creating these films that help us learn more about our world, but also, learn about the films that we love. I mean, we're in a particularly interesting time right now in terms of movies about movie makers and movie making. I mean, we just had a movie, a great doc made in England, about Powell and Pressburger, the people behind the creative team behind The Red Shoes, and so many, Black Narcissus, so many other terrific films. Later on this fall, we're going to be having a film about, and hopefully on the show, having Mark Cousins talking about his film about Hitchcock.
Yes, I'm very excited about that.
So I think movies about movie making and movies about movie makers, really are a great way to remind ourselves about how some of these great films, and then go back and revisit them. I mean, you and I just went and saw In Cold Blood, right? And why did I want to see In Cold Blood? Of course, it's a great movie. I want to see, but I remember seeing Visions of Light about cinematography and the way it focused on Conrad Hall shooting this one scene and the rain, reflecting on Robert Lee Smith. And I said, I have to see that movie.
That's right.
I mean, there were plenty of films in Visions of Light. There were plenty of movies they talked about in Visions of Light. But I distinctly remember, and I said, if I ever get a shot, I'm gonna go see that movie.
Yeah. What's exciting to me about you doing this, Greg, is that this movie, that is Merchant Ivory, is going to actually be in this theater. We're sitting in this theater. It's a 1924 theater. It's been your family's theater for decades and decades, and so the idea of bringing the filmmaker into the theater, we get to watch trailers and bits of the movie and the inspiration for the movie in the theater. Again, there is this joy of going to the theaters, which is, perhaps some people have forgotten what it's like to actually go and be transported. But our intent again is to bring the movie, bring the movies and the filmmakers to the theater, and as a reminder. But we're in a fortunate position, being in Los Angeles. Many of the creators are here or are coming through here. This is where a lot of the releases are starting. These films are going to play around the country. So I really want, I don't want this to be necessarily just too hermetic about Laemmle Theatres and seeing films at Laemmle Theatres. This is, I want people to see this and find where the film is playing in Seattle and Boston and Detroit and all these other markets around the country, and to let people know, if you have friends who who love
art films, whether it's Merchant Ivory or whatever, that we're going to be talking about the kinds of films that are going to be playing around the country. And anything that we can do to build greater audience for these films wherever they're playing, is important.
This is great to get you to get inside the art house.
Yes, that's right.
Wherever that art house may be.
Wherever that art is, but it's there. I mean, there are, they're everywhere around this country, and communities both large and small, operated by people, like my family, that are doing it as a business, and operated by community groups that are providing extra support for them. There are film societies that use college campuses to present films. There's all kinds of ways in which you can get together with a group of people, a group of strangers, and see something where you don't have the remote in your hand. And that's the best way to see these movies. It's the most respectful way to the people who created them to see these movies, and we really want to get people, showing that respect and get into the movie theater.
Right, and I can say as a filmmaker, I having an opportunity to be able to talk to, in this case, the person who's both programming the theaters and also really has, in this case, this intent of wanting to kind of elevate and kind of help sort of amplify the conversation around their movies. It is as an independent filmmaker hard to get break through the noise. And so, the intent of this, as we've discussed anyway, is to help filmmakers amplify their voices out there inside the art house.
Yeah. Well, look, movie theaters of all stripes got hit, by the pandemic. And there's been support to get us back open. And we're 3 years in, and the audience is coming back, but not everybody is back. Not all types of certain quadrants of the audience aren't back. And it's hard because that same impact that hit movie theaters hit a lot of other things. You're not seeing films getting reviewed in the same way that they were covered before the pandemic. Advertising's changed. Ways of reaching audiences have changed, and certain segments of the audience are easier to reach now, but certain segments of the audience are harder to reach. So this podcast is an opportunity to create a new way or something new for people to find out what's worth seeing. Because if you used to open up the newspaper on Friday and read a review and determine from that what's worth seeing, you're not seeing it anymore. Right.
And good luck if it's a filmmaker getting a review in the New York Times or the LA Times. They just don't have people to be able to do it.
Yeah.
We, you and I discussed about how this is about really helping filmmakers, helping them find their audiences, and helping audiences find the films that they love in an art house. So thank you, Greg. Thanks for making this possible. And we're excited to continue this process. We're going to have many more interviews to come. This is our first, and so we're very excited to tell you about Merchant Ivory and the director, Stephen Soucy, and his film that's opening on August 30th in New York and Los Angeles.
And please come back and join us inside the Art House.